This is the radio that never turned off. There was a young man who lived in a small village in the Middle East. He loved listening to old-time radio shows, so one Saturday he went to the local flea market to look for an old radio. As he was walking around the market, he saw an old man sitting behind a pile of junk. But when he got there, the old man and the radio were gone. The young man knocked on the door and a woman opened it. "Can I help you?" she asked. He didn't want to spend the night alone in the village. "I think I'm being followed by something evil," he said to her. "I don't understand Arabic, but I heard a voice say that I would die tonight." They called the police, but when the officers arrived, they couldn't find any evidence of foul play. The stake was still lodged in the young man's chest, but there were no signs of forced entry and nothing appeared to be stolen. He realized that the old man was insane. The investigator backed away from the old man and left the house. As he was leaving, he heard the old man say, "You'll never escape the radio." The investigator ignored the old man's words and went to meet with the young man's family. He told them what he had learned about the radio, but he didn't tell them about the old man's insanity. The police ruled the death as an accident and the case was closed. They held a funeral and buried him in the family cemetery. They buried their daughter and went to the priest for help. They had lost their daughter and they would never be able to bring her back. Would you ever listen to a mysterious old radio? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you'll never miss another terrifying tale. Now leave a comment below to share this video with a friend. If you dare, and if you really want to test your courage, subscribe and follow for more scary stories. The family was torn apart by grief. They didn't know how they would ever move on from this tragedy. They were stuck in a never-ending cycle of despair. He told them that the only way to stop the radio was to destroy it. The family gathered around the radio and smashed it with a hammer. The radio emitted a loud screech and then it stopped. Finally, the family was safe. After the funeral, the family went to the house to clear out the young man's things. The radio was possessed and it was too powerful for him to stop. The radio started playing static and then a voice said, "You cannot escape me. I am your fate." The family huddled together and prayed for help. But their prayers were not answered. They found the radio in his room and threw it in the trash. But the next day they heard a voice coming from the trash. "You can't hide from me forever," the voice said. "I will find you and then I will kill you." The family was terrified. They didn't know what to do. But the young man's family refused to believe that he had died by accident. But that night, the family was awoken in the middle of the night by screams. They went to investigate and found one of their daughters standing in front of the radio. "Help me," she cried. "It won't let me stop." The family was horrified. They didn't know what to do. The family screamed in terror as they felt their daughter's life force leave her body. In the morning, they found their daughter lying on the floor. She was cold and lifeless. The radio had killed her. They hired a private investigator to look into their son's death. The woman smiled and said, "Don't worry, you're safe here. No evil spirits can enter this hotel." They begged the radio to stop, but it wouldn't have. The family spent the night praying and crying. They didn't want their daughter to die. He was an elderly man who lived in a remote part of the country. The private investigator visited the old man and asked him about the radio. "I knew something was wrong with that radio," the old man said. "I tried to warn you, but you wouldn't listen." The private investigator pressed the old man for answers, but he refused to talk anymore. The young man thanked the woman and went to his room. He locked the door and turned on the TV to try to drown out the voice in his head, but the voice kept telling him that he would die tonight. He hailed a taxi and told the driver to take him to the nearest hotel. The young man screamed as he heard footsteps outside his door. He could hear the doorknob turning, but when the door opened, there was nothing there. The young man was shaking with fear when he heard the voice say, "It is midnight now. Your time has come." The young man fell to the floor and cried out as he felt a sharp pain in his chest. He looked down and saw a wooden stake protruding from his chest. The last thing he remembered was the old man from the flea market. Had the old man put a curse on him? Was the radio possessed? Or was he just going crazy? As the taxi pulled away from the cottage, the radio in the back seat suddenly turned on and a voice began to speak in Arabic. "Tonight at midnight, a young man will die in this very taxi. His body will be found on the side of the road and his soul will be lost forever." The young man screamed in terror as the taxi driver sped out of sight. "I'm looking for an old man who had a radio," said the young man. "He was here yesterday, but he hasn't been seen since," said the woman. "Do you know where he might have gone?" The woman shook her head. "I'm sorry, but I haven't seen him." The young man thanked the woman and continued his search. The young man tried to find the old man, but he had disappeared. The young man was about to give up hope when he heard a voice inside his head. "Find me and I will tell you the truth about the radio." The voice sounded like the old man's voice, so the young man decided to follow the voice. And there was an old radio on top of the pile. "How much for the radio?" asked the young man. "If you can push it, it's yours," said the old man. The young man took the radio home. He plugged it in and turned it on. Static filled the airwaves. Then a voice began to speak in Arabic. "This is Radio Monte Carlo, broadcasting to the world from the French Riviera. It is May 1968. The young man listened in amazement as the radio played music and announcements from the 1960s. Then the broadcast ended and the radio went silent. The next day, the young man went back to the flea market to return the radio. The voice led him to a small cottage on the outskirts of town. The sun began to set and the young man was starting to get scared. He ran into the nearest hotel lobby and collapsed. A woman rushed over to him and asked if he was okay. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out. The next morning, the hotel staff found the young man's body in his room. The private investigator tracked the radio back to its original owner. Then the investigator noticed a glint in the old man's eye. The family was distraught, but they had to accept the fact that their son was dead. They called a priest and told him about the radio. The priest came to the house and blessed it. He told the family that they were safe. They called the priest again, but when he arrived, he was unable to help. The radio started playing again. "Your daughter will die at midnight," it said. The family was horrified. They didn't want their daughter to die. At midnight, the radio started playing again. "Your daughter is now dead," it said. The family was devastated. They didn't know what to do. But the destruction of the radio came at a terrible cost. And that is the story of the radio that never turned off.